But Andy, so are you sort of the sort of the color of the
I can, definitely. So we have a nomination from Kai to have Janacek chair this meeting.
David,
Do
you
you
would
have any,
What's that?
jump in?
I don't care, just so we move it along as efficient. If that's what it takes, I'll do it.
do we have any seconds or a second? Okay, and is everybody okay with that? Any opposition? All right, we're moving
Aye.
on. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Okay,
Ready to start? I heard the bell ring.
yeah, you are being recorded, so
Okay.
you're good.
Then I will call this Plan Commission meeting to order. The date is Tuesday, May 17th. It's a minute or two past our 6:30 starting time. I've been appointed temporary presiding officer for purposes of tonight's meeting. We voted on that, right, Steph?
Yes.
Okay. First matter on the agenda is was the call to order, which I've done. And roll call, please. Stephanie?
Okay, Tim Janacek,
Here.
Andy Blumstrom,
Here.
Arlen Kai,
Here.
Arlen Christensen.
Here.
Dave Hageman,
Here.
Brian Duffin, absent, Sharon Christensen. Here.
Thank you. Next matter on the agenda, approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was on April 26th.
And you have comments.
I do have a comment, but it is this, under Janacek on page 1. There seems to be a word missing. It says Janacek is confident the town's efforts in creating the 2-acre minimum lot size policy. As I recall, what I was saying was I was confident in the town's confident in.
Okay, and you're correct that it's what you said.
So I have a motion to approve the minutes with that clarification.
Also move.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, carried.
Thank you.
Fourth item on our agenda tonight is public comment. And I understand we have Mr. Stussy, or a representative of the Stussy property owner to speak as part of public comment. Is that right?
Correct, yep.
Sir, would you mind, if you're going to be the spokesperson, would you mind standing up and identifying yourself and giving us your address for the record?
Sure. My name is Thomas Stussy, 714 County Road D.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so my family farms on the west side of the township. The parcel there is actually owned by my grandma. And my wife and I are interested in pursuing the opportunity to build a house on that. So I spoke with Brian a little bit, Brian Duffin. I do have a density study that was done. So Dane County did approve that. Brian thought it would be fitting to come here, little question answer type thing. We're not really stuck on one side or the other of the parcel. I can tell you the north side of Frenchtown Road, that field that you're seeing, that's kind of a triangle. If you cut out just that field, it's like 4 acres. So that's kind of where we're looking. The other side of it, on the south side of Frenchtown Road, that very tip where it meets D would be another spot. That would be a couple acres, but it probably is a questionable place for a driveway. So the driveway would probably come down like parallel with D and come out across from an existing driveway.
Tom, could you do us a favor and just step up here and use your finger
Sure.
as a pointer and show us a little more accurately what?
So we're more interested in this right here. This field actually comes out to be 4 acres. So a potential driveway would come right along the tree line here, and then a house would sit about here. If everything works out to that point. Otherwise, we would potentially cut this part off of this side of the parcel, bring the driveway down here and bring it out on D right across from, there's a Hontoons here and their driveway is about here. And we actually enter this field from about right here already. But it's just a field driveway, so it's not, I'm pretty sure there's no culvert or anything in there, but it's then there's a path already through the woods to get to this chunk right here, but this is more waste, just because equipment's too big to get in here and we can't turn around anyway, so it's basically just grass.
If you build on the southern side of Frenchtown Road, you'd be coming off County High Road D with a driveway potentially.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, just because when you get up in here, the very top of this, there is an existing driveway right here. But on this side of the road, you can see to the south really clear. You can't this way just because of the amount of trees that are planted along this. It's pretty blind. It's kind of hairy turning onto Frenchtown Road from D. So the best thing to do would probably just be to bring it down. I think to bring it out right here on Frenchtown Road would be, I mean, I'm not an expert. I'm just going by what I've, pulling in and out of the field, seeing people come over the hills, that kind of thing. So once you get back here, it gets kind of blind in here. Yeah, that's why I'm here. I don't know what I've not had a surveyor out. We're very preliminary. We're not in a rush. We're just, kind of starting to plan this out. I don't know how far you need to be able to see. Is there a rule for that, for a driveway? It's like 300 feet or something like that.
There is, and I haven't got the thing with me, but I can't.
It's a.
She's got a, you can get you a driveway ordinance.
Sure.
As you can read too.
Yes,
Yeah.
and if it's on, obviously, if it's on that Frenchtown Road, that would be our driveway permit from us, but if it's County Highway D, then the county would do
Sure.
a driveway permit.
Okay.
And the total, I'm sorry, go ahead, David.
What is that 24 acres, what is that currently zoned?
FP 35. Yeah, and this is these parcels right here is town of Montrose. This is the farthest east point of the township of Oregon. And this is all part of one farm that we own on Frenchtown Road. That's like this is the only 24 acres that's on Frenchtown Road. That's part of D, but the rest of it's like another 200-ish acres. And the land density said there was like 4, I think I have it on my phone somewhere. I think it's up to like 6 splits. Is it 1 per 35 is what it would amount to?
Have you given any thought if you're going to try and rezone all the 24 acres? Are you going to just rezone maybe where you're thinking about putting a house and anything, or?
Yeah, I would rather rezone potentially where we're just gonna put a house. Obviously you got a 2 acre minimum, but we're gonna end up with a little bit more than that either way, no matter how we do it. Just because I was raised, my grandfather was very much into, we're not gonna break up any fields, so we're gonna do that. There's a pretty good dead space here. So we would essentially just have this field, and then I guess this would just end up being a sliver still connected to this parcel, and that would still stay FP 35.
What did your density study show? You said you had a density, how many splits are there?
6, I think.
6 for the 35 acres?
In the town of Oregon?
Or the whole farm are you talking?
The whole farm for the county, it's like 220 or 230 acres for that whole farm. So that's what the county went off of, is that right?
Yeah, I would be surprised if there were 6 splits on a 35 acre parcel.
Right.
It'd be the whole farm.
Well, Did, the Dane County said you had 6 splits, but that was in the town of Montrose, and this parcel's in the town of Oregon. Do you have enough splits from property in the town of Oregon to apply to that?
Oh, yeah, there's 600 some acres.
Yeah, well, I realize it. So this is a rhetorical question.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I think if we had to, to move one or whatever, it's not out of the question, yeah. Yeah, because I don't know that they've ever used one. I don't think so.
Okay.
No, nobody's ever built a house. I'm pretty much the first one that's looking into doing it. So as far as I know, and I don't know what the total acreage is, I can ballpark it just by what fields are, but I don't know what, but I think it's, beyond that, the rest of it that's in, there'd be like a couple different entities that own the rest of it. It's like 600 some acres, so. Yeah,
And those splits would be applying,
yeah,
one of those splits would be applied to this.
yeah, because this Brian with the planning and development. Under the policies of the town of Oregon, Dane County Comprehensive Plan, the property has the potential for one home site. Please keep in mind that town and county boards must approve a land division and rezone before any new home could be constructed. So on his draft, he does have 0.63 original splits. Available density unit of 1.
Because it's a roundup, so on that, because of all their acreage put together. With that, whatever 24, so say they already had 635s. If you're at least halfway to that next 35, you get another one, and so that's why they're saying 0.63, is because on that 24 acres, that would only apply to the one split, but.
And it would, on the 24 acre, that's 24 acres in the purple or the.
That's what we're
Correct,
showing,
yeah.
yep.
Highlighted, that's 24.
Okay, all right, so if one house is built on that 24 acres, what would that do to the?
That would mean that split goes away. And whatever the remaining for your whole property stays, but it also means that then that's one, like Brian Standing said in the email. It was one per that 24 acres, so he probably wouldn't qualify to put any more on that 24 acres unless we change something, which is TDR or anything like that, which we don't know where we're at with that, so.
That's as far as you're thinking so far.
Correct, that's why I'm here.
That
Yeah,
gets your
just,
question answered that.
yeah, just for that. Yep, that's what I'm here for. That's that kind of stuff.
Not wanting to pin us down to some future agreement that we're not making now. Can anybody think of any objection that we ought to raise with Mr. Stussy at this time to question him about?
I'm familiar with that section of D, and I agree with you that it's a blind, the hill, it's a rather blind hill. So anything that you can do to either be coming off of Frenchtown or way down. And our edict or our directive is still to be preserving farmland. So the more you can dedicate to usable farmland is to your advantage.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to accomplish, because my grandma's still living, obviously, and my grandpa isn't anymore, and they were never into, and my dad and my uncle were landowners, are very much into, we're not gonna plop a house in the middle of a field or anything like that, but you get into, like, this corner is really, really hard to get into. We rip trees down all the time trying to get, we can't turn anything around in here. This is part farmland, but you can't really do anything with it because it's caught in the middle and it's not wide enough to get in and out from either side. So yeah, there's been some thought into making sure we preserve what's usable farmland, and we're not gonna break any of that up.
Because Grandpa might be watching too.
Yeah, I was pretty much told once that he would come back and haunt us if we ever tried to do anything like that. So we're gonna, yeah, we're taking all that into consideration. Yeah.
Okay, well, you're aware there's a process and the county's involved in all
Yep.
that, and there's paperwork and so on, so.
Yep.
Unless somebody else has some other questions to ask, it sounds like you're going in the right direction for starting the process, and then we'll be checking on things from time to time as they
Yep.
come before us.
Yeah.
And just so you're not alarmed when you start, mention the cost he'll have for the
You mean,
impact fee or whatever.
yes, we have an impact fee of $2,000. So once you create your CSM and you come in here for your signing of, once you get that far,
Mhm.
then that would be due at that time. And also if you take any of the, and you will be taking some sort of land out of farmland preservation, there will be an ag conversion fee, I believe. Now, that's not set by us, so I cannot tell you even close to how much that would be, but something to ask Dane County when that comes.
A
So
surveyor might know that.
Maybe.
Otherwise get contact that.
Yeah, though they should be able to point you in the right direction on who charges that and maybe what per acre, or per point acres that it would be.
Sure, okay.
But those are some of those costs that would go
You
along with
mentioned
that.
somebody at Dane County named Brian. You've got a contact and phone number now, so that's.
Yeah, they're really helpful. I've
Good.
talked to them a couple of times. Yeah,
Good. You're doing well by following with this.
yep.
Anybody else have anything else for Mr. Stuckey? Anything for us?
So Brian Duffin mentioned one, obviously I pointed out where the driveways go, or where I think, he said maybe somebody from you guys comes out and just like overlooks it at the same time, and is that something that you do?
As a driveway inspector, you get a hold of the town board and somebody will come out and check it out with you. for
Sure.
Sight lines and stuff like that.
Okay,
Then you'll get a driveway permit from them, but they can come out whenever you're ready to kind of meet you out there to discuss options as well.
okay,
Even if you're not ready to get that permitting process going yet,
Okay.
if you're still so new to it.
so my only other question is, my next step should be probably get a surveyor to start surveying out what exactly would be divided off.
Preliminary survey.
Yeah, that's preliminary, and then I come back here for the preliminary CSM. Once you guys approve it, then we go to the town board, and then it's approved CSM.
And you'll work with Dane County along the way. It's kind of like do it together so that we don't hold you up from Dane County. So once you apply at Dane County, you would apply here at the same time.
Sure.
And then we'll kind of move along with you.
Okay,
For your planning purposes, our large driveway width is 12-foot minimum now.
12 foot.
Yeah, so your driveway had to be 12-foot minimum width.
Okay.
So as you're thinking about where
The
you're going,
culvert at the end of the road's gotta be, or the end of your drive, it's gotta be 24. So fire truck can turn again and get in. And Stephanie's got a.
Yep, I can
ordinance.
send it the ordinance so that you kind of know what you're working
Give
with.
one or something, yeah.
okay, yeah, that'd be really helpful.
Okay, we've got your email, Stephanie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can,
yep.
will you send it to me? You could, I have a card over there, so,
Sure,
or you can even write it on a piece of paper.
Okay,
okay,
thanks for coming in.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you. Okay.
Before I get to Wilmot and 5596 Windrush Road, is there any other public comment? Okay, and you're up, folks.
Favor people.
Just because we're being recorded, please say your name, your home, your address.
Laura Wilmot, Nick Wilmot, 5596 Windridge Road. So we were asked to come back to this meeting to discuss our findings from Public Works. And so I have an email from them. So we were asked to see if they could change the deed restriction essentially into an easement. Unfortunately, that is not possible because what had happened is, and I can show you guys, I have it in here somewhere, what the deed restriction looks like. It's a handwritten document. It's not a formal document. It's something that was done that doesn't conform to natural processes. And it was filed by the builder in order to get the permit to put in the septic system. And so because it was filed with this builder, Public Works is not able to change anything with it because it wasn't done by them. So I do have a letter from them that they provided that I'm happy to share that shows that they reviewed it. And I'll just read through it, omitting the parcel numbers if that's okay. So it says Public Health Madison and Dane County has no objections to movement of the lot lines at your parcels of, we'll say lot 59 and lot 60. The proposed lot lines would make the northern parts of the parcel to one parcel in addition to some of the southern section of the other parcel being part of that larger parcel. There would be a smaller parcel created that would be the southwest section of the current parcels. Your current septic system is located on, I think it's lot 59, while your house is located on lot 60. There is there is a deed restriction on file for this to be allowed. If the movement of lot lines is approved, then the septic system would be on the same parcel as the house. Public Health Madison and Dane County does not have a requirement for a minimum or maximum lot size. The lot needs to be able to have a septic system location and ensure all setbacks are met, such as the 50 feet between a well and septic system. There is a replacement area that is laid out in your septic field file. It may need to be updated with a soil test if you choose to put a septic system on at this point. And if you have any further questions, it gives contact information.
What do you make of that?
I just feel really defeated, and I might get a little emotional here, but it's just a lot of back and forth. So this is really our only option, is to add the language. What we're here to discuss.
So I do have something before we start, is that the information that Brian Standing did give us, which I did include like a mapping and kind of put it all together on one sheet so you can read it. He did email us this evening, late this, right before here, and said that this may not be correct. Basically, that he might have to do some more research with the GSI specialist on this. So he must have ran into a glitch somewhere where he's not saying that these are completely correct. But I wanted to let you know of that just before you make any decisions, if that's important. If this portion of it is important to your decision making.
When you're having conversations with Brian Standing there, and he had some suggested
Language.
language
Mhm.
in here. It kept on repeating anything that was created prior to December of '94.
Okay.
Is there something significant about that date for, in the context of this? This doesn't have anything to do with splits. Or is '94 when we had the 2-acre rule?
I think that might
Okay,
be
so
when
this
you
is a-
guys did the plan that created these. things.
Okay,
But you cannot quote me on that one because that's not.
So
Okay.
what I know from the 1994 language is that is when the subdivisions were created. So
Smaller
that,
lot sizes then.
yeah, so that would be, it was what allowed us to have our current lot sizes that exist today. And so he used that language to restrict, because what I asked him to personally put together was something that wouldn't give new people an exception to the 2-acre. It would only allow those who already had that exception to maintain it. And so that is when that came into effect, was December in 1994.
so that's what I'm looking at in this situation here. Wasn't your lot cut down the length after '94?
No, it was done in 1992 is when all of my
It was.
records are from.
So that was
yes.
all,
All
so that's all in that pre-'94.
Yeah, so our original CSM map, and I apologize, I do not have a screenshot of that. But the deed restriction and everything's been dated 1992.
Okay. I guess I'm looking, it catches my eye, that December '94, and I'm not quite sure how important that is to adopting a different policy, because there's going to be some parcels that are canyons, trees, swales, drainage swales, or maybe some detention or something, that it may be advantageous to the two owners to shift property lines around. And I'm trying to think of this, why is it important to have this December '94? Because otherwise, this is appears to be a good or a good language thing to include, to be able to shift sizes around, as long as the two parcel that we maintain 2 parcels over that aggregate amount of land. If we're trying to have something that we can have a well and 2 septic fields, or opportunity for 2 septic sites in either one of these 2 parcels. So what other than my looking at the December 94, I think it's a good idea that we adopt this policy that can allow the shifting for unique circumstances like this, as long as we do not increase the density of the original parcels.
Well, Arlen, can you give us some insight on that? I'm not old enough to remember 1994.
Come on now. I forget. That far back, too. So we split. What did we do with that lot in Raven Oak said when we split that? We changed lot lines, just like they're asking. And we did that for them people. How did we do that?
I think we did, you mean recently? when
Yeah.
We did that? They retained the original amount of land within the lots. They just moved the line, but they still remain the same size. Different shape, same size though.
I knew we changed lot lines before.
Oh, I know,
Yes,
I
yes.
remember which one you're talking about, and you're right, that just went from, it kind of looked like that, and they flapped it to the other way, but they did retain the same amount of acreage, both owners retained the same amount of acreage,
So I just have a question on that.
which may not have been 2 acres, I don't know, I'd have to. go
So,
back and-
okay, that was
Because they
my
were in a
question is,
subdivision.
can we even do that because we aren't even 2 acres?
Well, that's the thing, I don't know that those guys were 2 acres or not, but I just know that they retained the same amount of acreage that was intended in their lots.
That's what I remember. And in your case, you're going to take, sorry to be repeating this over and over because you've been here so often.
That's the where you're getting hung up, though,
Yeah.
is because.
Because we've got 4 acres and.
We don't have 4 acres.
Right,
We
so,
got 3.95.
Yeah, and so I
Yes.
just want to clarify that, and I don't mean to interrupt, but that's what we didn't know going into this. So when we bought everything,
We
when
were
we
told
started this process, we thought we had over 4 acres
4.05.
and it was no big deal.
mhm,
Then
It'd be really easy to go to
3.95.
them, fix it up.
yeah,
3.95 really just changed everything.
All right, let's pretend it's 4 acres just for my sake of my arithmetic skills. But what you are, what makes this different than the situation that we did in Raven Oaks is that you're gonna end up with 2 lots, one's 3 acres and one is 1 acre.
Yep.
In round numbers.
Yes,
For
so,
easy math, yes.
yeah, so essentially just for a visual, again, our house sits at the end of this dotted line and our septic system runs over here. And so we want to take out of lot 60, that northern boundary and bring it down essentially so that our septic system is on this property and it's just clean title work. Because it's, I wish I had, and I can try and pull it up, this restriction that was put on it, because it is just like the wonkiest thing.
Still maintains an average of 2 lots over 4 acres.
I can show you guys all a picture of it. It's literally a handwritten.
No.
It doesn't follow conformative verbiage. It's just a lot of uncertainty with it.
But has it been recorded?
Yes,
Oh, it has been recorded.
this was recorded in August 24th of 1992.
And again, that's a deed restriction stating,
So
what's the purpose of that deed restriction?
So this deed restriction essentially says that the 2 lots cannot ever be sold separately, which is not an overall concern for us because we don't actually want to sell, we have no intent to sell this lot. But there is stuff that we would like to do with this area. We'd like to put a shed up here. We can't do that. When we talk about, if we ever were to build or need to put another septic system on here, we don't have the ability to put another septic system if ours fails. And so after meeting with you guys and the county and Public Works, almost everybody has been telling us to try and get that septic system over to the plot with your house and redo this acreage so that if you're not doing the deed restriction. And the deed restriction is written in such a way, and I can't read this very well in this handwriting, but what I ran into is that the verbiage is so unclear that they don't necessarily even know how to treat the deed restriction. Going forward, anything we want to do, we could be running up with issues with this deed restriction because the verbiage is just not clear. And the Dane County said the only way to get rid of the deed restriction is to do a new CSM map and redistribute the lot lines. But there is no other way to get rid of it,
Your
sorry.
overall goal is get your septic on the same lot as where the house is. And then do you foresee trying to sell the other lot to be buildable?
The only.
But it could be.
It is legally buildable now. We could put a house and a septic system on it as it is today.
Based on what criteria?
It's
That
a
is-
lot, it's a buildable lot.
It's a buildable
If somebody wanted to buy
It
it,
has a development right on it
they
currently.
can buy it.
Own both
develop.
those lots.
We own both.
We could throw another
And the
one
other
on the
lot-
septic, another house on
The-
it right now if we want.
The only benefit we see is a security blanket, right? There's value in land. Who knows, 50 years from now, you know, what this could do for us. We don't have a desire to sell. We love our property here. We don't want to do anything with it.
We love maintaining we love to maintain all of that at the woods,
Yeah, so
Keep
this is a
as much
majority of
natural-
our wood line here.
as much natural landscape as possible.
And can you explain to the plan commission why you initially ran into the problem? And if I remember correctly, when we talked about this, a year or over a year ago, you guys were looking at building an outbuilding, correct? And you cannot do it on that lot because there is not a house on that
It's
lot.
a non-habitable building.
Yes, okay. So we.
And I just want to make sure
originally-
they know that's another complication is that whole property, yes, they could sell it right now and somebody could build on it, but if they want to maintain it, cannot do anything on it. Like, it's just woods.
And we originally ran into it when we purchased. We actually really struggled to close on the property. Because this deed restriction said we had to treat it as one property, but for all intents and purposes, it's two properties. And it took a lot of battling with the title company and the mortgage company to just push the paperwork through. And I just don't want that happening for anybody else.
So, yes, without getting too personal with what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah.
Is it more important for you guys to get that septic system onto the same lot as your house? More so than having a lot that you could sell to Joe Blow that they could build on?
Yes.
He says yes, because that is the overall goal. I just finances is my thing. I do mortgages. And I have a hard time, knowing what we're potentially losing in the future, if that's a route we ever wanted to go. I loved it as a security blanket. That's why we really purchased it. Ultimately, that's what we want. Our dream would be to put it all in one lot, be able to put up a shed to handle our tractor, and our camper, and at some point down the line and stay here until we can't maintain the property anymore. So if push came to shove, yes, that is ultimately what we would be looking at doing. I'm just really hoping that you guys can see that, these are rights that we already have, and we're really just looking to keep them. I know, Sharon, you've mentioned where people have said that before, and that's not what's happened. I can promise you, like, our intent is not to sell. That is not.
You're right now to sell as well.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have that right. So there could be a house there tomorrow for everybody who knows.
Yeah, a septic system, there's currently a field mapped out on that parcel for a septic system. It's completely buildable.
For two septic.
For two septic systems, exactly.
But something very important for you guys is to get rid of that current deed restriction, right?
Yes.
And the only way that you found to get rid of that is,
A new CSM map.
Change some lot line.
And the only way I can get a new CSM map is with this verbiage, because that turned out not to be 2 acres.
And I also wanted to point out that if you're looking at like what our assessment acres are and what Dane County has put here, like she said, the only way that they found out that they were under 4 acres was because they did a CSR, or had a survey come out. right here, you can see that other lot is showing up here at 2.02 acres. And that their other lot, the one that they live on, is 2.05 acres. It's a calculation error,
When
yes.
they filed our CSM map, the square footage was listed on it. And it's converted to acres and nobody double checked it. So if you go off of the square footage, it matches our CSM map. I think it was like, what, up to 95 feet or something. It was something really small. But somebody put it in the system wrong.
You said you couldn't do something without the verbiage. You're talking about the verbiage that Brian has in here.
Yeah, so I specifically worked with Brian to figure out how could we accomplish what we're looking at without giving people who, essentially, without opening up this less than 2 acre minimum to everybody in the town. That's not the goal. That's not what we're here to accomplish. And so that was the verbiage he recommended because it would restrict those who have a buildable lot. I believe he quotes the subdivision part of that. So it would be something that was already zoned to be residential and buildable and was established before the 2 acre minimum and part of the density plan. So this would not increase density at all because it was already part of the density plan. So he added those 3 contingencies in there to reduce who could take advantage of the verbiage essentially. I do want to point out, I did learn from him, you can put this in and amend it at any time and take it out too.
Some of us have longer memories than, nobody has a longer memory than Arlen.
I remember when they put that in, and that was my Uncle Wes's farm.
Was it really?
Yeah,
Oh God, I would love to hear the story.
Did you bury a pet in the backyard and put a rock formation?
That was it.
But, it's been a long time because Al Schwartz and Jay Buzzingham plotted that whole thing out.
Fundingham, I believe was the name on the deed restriction. No, Beber.
Remember? You got in it.
It says Beaber. And I did try to contact him, to see if I could get him to remove the deed restriction. Apparently you can't do that. He can't just come in and say, hey, I want to remove the deed restriction I placed. I did try though.
Yeah.
No, I think the town board would be looking for a recommendation to us as to whether we want to have them enact this amendment. And I think we all understand that it will have consequences or potential use by people other than this nice couple. It's going to be an amendment to the plan that will apply to anybody who requests that they take advantage of it. My concern, and maybe that's too strong a word, is that we're going to have a 1 acre piece of land in the subdivision and buildable, which is what you guys are, at least half of you are interested in. Buildable 1 acre lot in a subdivision, otherwise it appears to have lots considerably larger than that.
Our subdivision, the average acre in our subdivision is 7.74.
Points.
0.74.
Yeah.
So all of these
All
acreages,
of-
there's only, ooh, what was it?
There's only 5 lots that are over 1 acre out of 40 or something.
And one of them is ours. So I did run all the averages. I pulled all of the acreage. Going off of Access Dane, which I've learned is not 100% accurate. And I think it was 4. I thought it was 4, but that were over 2 acres. Otherwise, all of them, a majority of them are actually under an acre with an average of 0.74 acres.
And that the reason for that is because when subdivisions were created in the town, all lots had to be at least supposedly 0.75. So most of the subdivisions we have are a minimum of 3/4 of an acre.
And I think that's where he got the 3/4 of an acreage verbiage from then.
I'm sure.
Was both going off of the average and what it was. We did find, I looked at it and there were some that were like 0.68 acres and stuff like that. I mean, we're not looking to do the minimum. I would love to be able to say I'm looking at a 3 and a 1 acre. But really, until we pay for the surveyor to come back out again, I can't tell you like how many acres that is. I've mapped it out the best I can. It would be around that 3 to 1 ratio.
Sir, in the audience, you had your hand up. Would you mind stating your name and your address for the?
Yeah, I'm Dan Phelps, 892 Storytown. I have no stake in this matter at all. I just remember Brian Standing. I think he said he was going to try to identify the number of lots where this might be affected by the change. And
Yes.
I don't know if you got that information, but that wasn't brought up yet. And that's what I remember him saying.
Steph, can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, I can. He did, or we thought that happened, and then I can show you right here. The issue is that this evening, he had emailed and said that the information that he just gave us, whatever, yesterday or the day before, might not be completely accurate. So if you wanted to get an idea, I mean, what if we don't know, it could only be 2 sites off, we don't know, but if you wanted to get an idea, this is what he's put together thus far. And kind of tells you that there's 42 sites highlighted below. And then it'll tell you, I believe, here we go. So right here, it tells you created by CSM or subdivision plat prior to this is 20 lots, and then created by subdivision plat prior to December 1994 is 10 lots. So really it's 30. Is that what it's saying?
Yes, so I asked him to double check this essentially because I worked with them putting this together in response to what was asked from the last meeting. The verbiage, you have the original verbiage of what he was showing. There was
The thing that
something,
we went off last time.
yeah, there's
So-
something that says between 2 and 4 lots, I believe.
There, right here.
Yes, 2 and 4 lots. And so I asked him, like, was that an accurate representation of people who could come in today and make the same changes we could? And so I don't know if he had to relook at that, and that's what caused the email.
It's possible.
Because what happened is when I looked at it, and my interpretation of this, which is what I asked to clarify with him, is if it's between 2 and 4 lots, so-and-so has to own 2 parcels in order to fall into this, right? Because if you don't own 2 parcels, you can't fall into that verbiage. So when I went through, I actually got a list of all the parcels from them. When I went through all of the parcels, I only found 4 that had more than, they owned 2 parcels, essentially, 4 people on that entire list. So I don't know if he's re-looking at that. He did bring up a very valid point that said, you can't necessarily say that it limits down to 4 because tomorrow somebody could go and buy 5 parcels and then qualify for it. And so I thought that was a very fair point, which I don't know if he's going back and looking at that at this point. But there were, I think I took a picture of it, 4 addresses that had the same owner for 2 of the parcels that showed up on the list that could potentially qualify for this verbiage.
Stephanie, could I ask a question?
Oh my gosh. Yes,
Who's speaking?
Jason, you can.
Not to interrupt. This is a buildable site the way it sits right now, correct? Prior to 94.
You are correct.
So everybody's really haggling over here is a deed restriction on a septic system. It was a buildable site prior to this, according to the comprehensive plan. Can't the planning commission and town board just kind of overrule this and make it work? Where all we're really doing is adjusting a lot line to something they already have a buildable site. Or is that not possible?
No, it sounds like that's what Brian Steen was trying to accomplish with the language that he'd like, or that he's proposed to put in the plan. And that would be the only way that could be accomplished, is if they approve that language. If the plan commission makes a recommendation to approve it and the town board approves it.
Yeah, I was just curious because they're not adding a lot or anything. It's already there. It's just language is kind of goofed up here a little bit and it just needs to be fixed.
Yeah, the issue is that they would have, the way that they have to do it is that they are creating a CSM. And when they create a new CSM, that means basically, I don't know the best way to describe
Fall
it.
underneath the new rules, which requires 2 acres, but we don't have 2 acres.
Right. Did you hear that, Jason?
Yeah, but it's two separate lots now, correct?
It is.
So but they do not have two CSMs now?
They do not. It's a
They do
plat.
not.
Subdivision.
It's a subdivision plat.
So we do have those addresses if you're interested. The ones that I came up with was 925 Azure Court. Both of those appeared to be under 2 acres. 5533 Shield Drive. I didn't know if that was technically a developable lot though. And doesn't appear that it would even be able to have driveway access because it's behind a park. It's an east property, so maybe you can speak on this one. 658 Tipperary was potential. I didn't know if it was zoned residential though. And then 418 Tipperary Road. Those were the 4 that I found. Actually, can you pull up the map and I can show better how I came up with those? So it's just a map that he highlighted, the like salmon blue color. So what I did is I cross-referenced all the parcel numbers. All of these blue ones are what shows up in the verbiage that they're talking about. And so I went through and like, this one has land that's touching, right? So I looked and identified each of the owners on all land, cross-referenced with who owns 2 parcels, and that's how I came up with it. So I'm not gonna say I'm confident in what I found, but that's what I found.
Stephanie, do we know for sure what Brian Standing's final recommendation is as to appropriate wording to address this issue? Is he still thinking about it?
Well, like we just kind of pointed out, the original, the one that he sent us before the last meeting is a little different than the one that he's currently recommending. So I would say maybe to reach out and say, what would be your final recommendation on verbiage? Just to clarify that it's one or the other. And he may find something like you're saying, you kind of triggered that.
I may have, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. And then maybe the verbiage would change a little bit because it would be actually narrowed down much more.
Yes, that's what he's trying to accomplish, is we're trying to get to a spot that still includes us in the language so we can accomplish what we're doing, but minimizes it so the very least amount of people can take advantage of it.
So the impact is small.
Well, right now, we're looking at having a recommendation to the board or making a recommendation to the board as to the direction or at least a concept here that's been put out in the sentence, there's a couple of sentences there that are highlighted from Brian Standing that allows for shifting of lot lines so that it has between a 3/4 acre and 2 acres in area, but not have greater density than what was there before.
It would still be only to give the previously considered amount of housing.
Yeah, so that 4 acres can only have 2 housing units there. If there was anything, I don't know if we need to add it, but it would certainly be the intent that there be adequate room on both lots to be having the 2 septic field area identified for the 2 septic fields and 2 wells, as well as a house site. It seems to be the intent that we're after to be fitting with the intent of the 94 plan, which said 2 acres. It started out as 8 and then it got down to 2 to be able to have the well and the 2 septic fields.
And Arlen, you are referring to page 5 of tonight's packet.
Yes.
And that language that was recommended at that time by Brian Standing was where there are between 2 and 4 existing lots, all created prior to December 1994, right?
Correct.
I had trouble with his wording on that being somewhat of a nitpicker. What is between 2? What number is there between 2 existing lots and 4 existing lots? There's only one number, and that's 3. So what he's suggesting is where there are 2, 3, or 4 existing lots, right?
Mhm.
Isn't that what he's trying to
Yeah,
say?
between,
So I just thought that part was ambiguous, but I think his intention is that it would be either 2, 3, or 4 existing lots. And then the rest of the paragraph would apply.
to move the, to move this to the discussion point, I would, what is the thought on fitting to the intent? Do they have adequate septic and area for septic, well, and home site on the parcels?
That's considered by somebody else. Somebody else at the county makes that determination, right? That they have no septic in an unbuildable place.
They could have a lot, and then if it didn't have adequate or the right for septic and that, they put a mound system up. So there, you can put a mound system anywhere. And as well, I don't think you'd have any trouble. I mean,
So your feeling is that you don't have to add that in there?
yeah, right.
The well shouldn't be an issue because isn't there some divisions that share wells?
Oh, sure. Some of them.
That should be a huge issue.
So there is a septic system like plan for it already, and I believe Public Works is the one who decided that, which is why in my letter, they said that if it ever became buildable, they would want a new soil test.
Perk test?
Yes, thank you. A new soil test done prior to actually going forward with it because it's been such a long time. The other thing that I learned, just for sharing all the knowledge I have, is that if that lot ever became buildable, it has to mirror the structure of the lots around it. So what that means is if the well is in the north half of all the lots, the new lot has to be able to sustain a well in the north section. So like all the wells have to be on the same side, all the septic systems have to be on the same side. So that she looked at the area and said that she didn't believe that was an issue, but something to consider if we ever build on it, which we don't care. And then a little bit more information on this information, which is why Brian is going back to it, is one of the things he said was in the verbiage, it being part of the density study. And when I talked with them, without physically looking up the records for all the parcels, they couldn't see what was part of the density study in 1994. The records only went back to like 2004, I think was the year or something, I don't recall. And so that also may be why he couldn't give you a more solid number. Just more research had to be done. So this is just based off of today's information.
Well, it seems to me like, you know, we have 2 lots right now. It could be 2 septic systems there. If we change the lot lines, there still can be 2 septic systems there, and it's not gonna pollute anybody or create any more problems that might already exist there now. And other lots are 3/4 of an acre, and it may not be an ideal situation, but the condition exists. But here they have 4 acres, so they're, you know, even though they don't own the land, they still have the area for the filtration into the soil or whatever, you know. So it's not gonna create any more problems with our groundwater than it would if they build a house on 2 acres, another house on 2 acres. So there's this particular case, I don't see a problem. I don't know in future cases what we're opening up a can of worms or not, but I think in your case, I don't see a real problem with it because we're not doing anything that would hurt anybody or pollute anything.
I did get a water test done. It all came back normal within normal ranges. So there wasn't any issues about high nitrates or anything like that as well. So.
Okay. I think we're ready for a vote on this.
Motion.
What are we voting on?
Well, it will depend on what the motion is.
To get this discussion going, I move that we adopt the language that says where there are between 2 and 4 existing lots, all created 2, 3, or 4 lots. all created prior to December 1994 and are all zoned for residential development. Lot lines may be reconfigured in such a way that one or more revised lots may be between 3/4 of an acre and 2 acres in area. Under no circumstances shall the total number of home sites be increased beyond what is permitted under the current configuration.
That's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I'd like to see that instead of 3/4 an acre, I would like to see it at at least 1 acre.
I think there's a friendly amendment.
You know,
In your case, it would be 1 acre, right?
Well, that's what we're trying for. I'm really just scared if it comes back at 0.98. What that does to us. Which
Get
is,
another surveyor.
I'm just,
that's not hard to figure out, though. All you gotta do is take your square footage, it comes up to 43,506.
we did, so we've been mapping this and we've had it, and
Well,
most people
Go
don't
that
believe
for
it's
much
an
farther,
issue.
and you're just over.
Really, the only reason.
Actually,
you're
it's
gonna
around
allow 1
61.
acre
Yeah,
is
right.
because you're not going by a plat. If this was a platted lot, it would be fine. But just because you're
Okay.
changing the description of the way you describe the lot from a platted lot to a certified survey, all you're doing is changing the description. If this was platted that way, it would be no problem.
Okay.
Or if you can change the plat, which you, obviously you can.
I feel like I have exhausted every possibility to try and fix it without you guys.
David.
So
Do you accept?
under the
friendly
discussion
amendment
of this
for 1
motion
acre?
now,
Do you accept?
Yeah, we're still discussing.
1 acre?
Mike, let's just put this into realistic terms here, how this would work out. So my first question is, where does this paragraph fit in our comprehensive plan that we're gonna redo? So that's one, we gotta put this.
You got to put it in the right place, right?
They
Yes.
can't do anything until our comprehensive plan that's gonna get this new language is in place and approved and recognized by the state and the county. So we don't know when that's gonna happen. So I mean, I'm just saying this is a little ways out yet.
It's gonna take
Yes,
a while.
so the reason why we're hoping to get a decision on this, because we do have to repay for the surveyor, essentially. I don't want to commit to those additional funds unless I know that this is going to move forward. What I found out is that if he comes out, let's say you guys approve this, town board approves it and comes out, I don't know, August or something, that map he draws, it doesn't expire. So if it takes you 6 months, a year, whatever that time frame looks like for you to adopt the new plan, I can still use those maps to do so. What I don't want to be out is another $3,000 if the language doesn't get adopted.
So I guess I'm just trying to lay out so we all understand
That's a valid comment. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
how this would work. So then, let's say we adopt this language, we make a nice little home for it in a new comprehensive plan, because maybe in 3 years or 4 years, we want to strike it out. If we find it a home, now they gotta get resurveyed. How do you go about getting rid of that deed that really was handwritten?
So my understanding from Roger Lane at Dane County is that by doing the new CSM, it basically wipes out all language tied to the land currently. So it would basically replace everything, and so the deed restriction would just be straight up gone.
So that by having this language in place, the county and our township, in theory, would have no objection to what they're trying to do then. Everybody's kind of understanding here. I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with everybody else.
I believe you're right. I could be wrong. Somebody could argue the opposite point a year from now, but that's what I think we're saying. We're doing.
So then you get that survey done. Just automatically wipes out that bad deed.
Assuming that the survey, the CSM gets adopted or gets filed and adopted and all those formalities are carried forward. It's got to be of record, right?
That has to come back here and then to the town board again as a final document. I believe.
It also has to go to the village, just for your knowledge, I do, because we're within 2 miles of the village line, I have to bring it to the village as well. I have preliminary met with both the village planning commission and the village board, and they have sent it to their engineer and don't see any foreseeable problems with what we are proposing, but obviously need an official CSM to make a determination on
Okay,
it.
good. Sounds like you got the roll of checks.
I'm trying.
Okay.
I'm really trying.
Did that answer your questions?
Yeah,
Anybody else have any further discussion? Sharon?
David and I were just chit-chatting here a bit. We have, in my estimation, going to put this language in the land use plan or a comprehensive plan. We have to make awful sure that that last sentence of this paragraph which says, under no circumstances shall the total number of home sites be increased beyond what is permitted under the current configuration. I think that is maybe the key to this whole thing. And I would like to see it in bold letters, but but I think when we put it into the comprehensive plan and get ready to have approval, we need to make awful sure that this is what it says.
Would you agree with me that the current configuration words refer to the plat of the sub?
Yes. Yes,
The platted lots on the sub.
right.
That's what I
So
understood that to mean too.
anybody coming in, let's say that lot 1 on this CSM map came in because it's a much larger lot. Let's say they came in and wanted to split that lot, and they could say, well, they could have many reasons for wanting to do it. And if it was 4.5 acres, technically, under normal circumstances, they could maybe divide that. But if we have this paragraph in there, it does not allow that. Because that lot is one lot, one house,
because that's how it was planned.
because that's how it was platted. So this sentence is making positive that lot number 1 up here cannot become 2 lots.
But
I think.
lot number 1 and lot number 2, lot number 2 in this is smaller. They could trade, or lot 2 can maybe pick up a little bit of land there, but still be 2 houses.
Yeah.
Right,
And I think what you're talking about, Sharon, I think in the same subdivision, but on the other end of it, there's a great big lot. There were like 3 or 4 acres.
right.
You
There
probably
is.
remember when he came in and wanted to split that lot,
Yes.
and we didn't allow it because of the original plat
Right.
only allowed for 1 lot, even though
Right.
it was a large lot.
Right,
So I think what you're saying is we want to make sure that that stays the same.
yes,
And that's where Brian was trying to put in language that would greatly restrict it. And so these numbers here, that's where he was struggling, from my knowledge, to get you how many there are, because he couldn't tell how many were originally plotted without pulling all individual records.
Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded with a request for a friendly amendment to change the 3/4 acres to 1.0 acres. Shall we vote on that with, as if the motion was 1.0 acres?
I got one more thing to say, and I remember in the past where at a platted subdivision in Raven Oaks, where the people changed their lot lines, but they didn't increase the lots in any lot, so they're basically doing the same thing.
right,
The only thing is they're getting a certified survey. Well, those people, obviously, if they change the lot lines.
they had to have a
they
certified
have a
survey too.
survey, So we've allowed this to happen. in the
Well,
past.
but we ended up, if I remember correctly, each of those lots stayed the same acreage wise.
Yeah, but also I know there's some instances where they didn't stay the same.
Right.
Yeah. We allowed this to happen. Just they wanted 3 more feet or 5 more feet or something,
Right.
you know. And so
But
by
they
adding
weren't,
5 more feet on their lot, they had to get a survey, a
right,
certified survey. And a CFM.
yeah, there was a case,
We allowed that to happen. That's basically what these people are doing.
I'm,
You know, only we need the language to to justify what we're doing here. You know, it's nothing that we haven't done before, but we haven't had the proper language to do it.
Well, and we didn't always have, a lot of times in a platted subdivision, they use the 0.75 acres because that was the minimum acreage in a platted subdivision. That's not the case anymore. If we were to have a new subdivision, my understanding is all lots would have to be 2 acres in that subdivision. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's my understanding. So if you're moving lot lines for people putting in an additional driveway or whatever, and you're not creating another building site, I guess it's okay. I'm not saying that I 100% approve of that, but I will consent to go along with it as long as that sentence is a very important part of our plan.
Right.
I just want to make sure when I call for a vote, then we are voting on Arlen Kai's wording of Arlen Kai's motion with Arlen Christensen's friendly amendment to change the 3/4 of an acre to 1.0 or 1 acre.
You agreed to that, because you
Yes.
made.
I have a
second.
question about the
Stephanie.
friendly amendment. I don't know that that's a thing, so you'll have to help me out here, but are you intending to change this language to, because in here it does say maybe between 3/4 of an acre and 2 acres in area. Do you want it to say 1 to 2 acres?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna cry. I just want to make very sure that that's.
And the motion also, Stephanie's changed that first clause to where there are 2,
2,
3.
3, 4.
Four,
Mhm,
yeah.
got that. Thank you.
All right, everybody think they understand the motion that's before us? All right, I'll call for the question. All and, well, let's do a roll call.
Sorry. I
Waited
thought I
6
had
months
that
to
shut
get
off.
this
I
one.
apologize. I thought I had it shut off.
Being inexperienced in the chair, do we take a roll call vote or are we gonna say aye?
Say aye. You have that Kai moved to adopt, the language, and then Blumstrom seconded, and then all in favor.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
I just want to thank all of you guys. I know this has been a really long road, a lot of questions, and it hasn't been easy, but thank you for always hearing us out.
Thanks for your preparation and your patience.
Thank you.
That covered, that took care of number 5 on our agenda. Number 6 is review and possible action regarding update of town land use plan. Anybody have anything to address on that, sir?
Well, that, and after last month's joint meeting, it was basically all those topics were then just come back to you guys for a recommendation. So now it's how you guys would like to handle making recommendations regarding those topics. And I did include that original I think I put it on the very last pages, would be the 8 bullet points that were that basically is what Wayne worked off of last meeting, just where each of you guys discussed each of those bullet points. And the town board decided that they would like you to look into all of them. So that's where it was left.
And there was also discussion on that to have incorporate the easy ones in there to be moving the comprehensive plan forward, and to, if things are too sticky, handle sticky ones as amendments to the comprehensive plan, but get the comprehensive plan going.
I agree with that more. what's the best way to go to get the comprehensive plan moving? Use the bullet points, go through the existing plan as it is and follow Brian Standing's recommendation page by page. How would you suggest we do moving forward?
I thought we, excuse me. Go ahead. I thought last meeting, we went through all these and we decided which ones that we were gonna send to the board and which ones that decided that we would wait to a later time. And that went to the board. Now it's back to us again. What the board do about it?
Said, told us to get it into the comprehensive plan. Get the plan.
Okay,
going.
well, we went through it already.
Yeah, so we tell Brian Standing to incorporate these.
So then we're waiting with Ryan Standing. We shouldn't have to go through this again.
All right, we should go through the formality of telling Brian Standing this is what we would like him to draft into the proposed plan. See what he comes
Yes,
up with.
because that has not been done. These were just recommendations that you would ask the town board to look at, to see if they had any issues, questions, anything that recommendations back to you guys on what, how to put it in there. And I believe they did, but they didn't make any like actual motions on it. So it's really, they've left it up to you guys to,
And the formal drafting needs to be done too.
yes.
Well, yeah, and if I remember correctly, item 4 is something we don't want to be working on right now. Because that's basically looking at, do we want more development? Do we want to change our density? That was, as I was referring to, I think that's one that you want to look at later as it's needed. So I guess my point is, we just don't want to tell Brian to work on all 8 of these, because I think as a planning commission, we need to decide on some of these that are going to have a greater impact than 4. It's going to have a very large impact. If we decide to look into that, as opposed to say, number 1, figuring out a TDR policy.
Yes, I get you. I take your point. That's TDR policy. That's something Brian Standing can do. But you hand him number 4 and you said, what
That's
does this
something
mean?
we
What
should
do I
be
do?
talking about here, more so than Brian saying, here's what, I think. Now, regarding that, out of the gate, the county has always wanted to do a conservation easement. We kind of pushed back on that. And I think at the last meeting, somebody brought up, well, when that's the case, let the landowner decide if they want to do a conservation easement or deed restriction. So, I mean, those are some of the details we got to get worked out. I guess my point is, I don't think we just want to blatantly say, try and work on all 8 of these.
Which ones would you like to see?
Yeah,
I thought we talked about this
Yeah,
last
we
week.
we did.
Numbers 1, numbers 2, numbers 3.
About 5, 6, 7, 8 were all kind of the same.
Well, Wayne, I think 5 and 6 are kind of combined, that policy 1F and that other ordinance. That's got to kind of get looked into. Correcting the mapping errors, I think, was something we were talking about doing now. weren't we, Alan? Right. And then as far as the commercial zoning, that I guess, Brian Standing has kind of come around and to our side, I think, where it's more of a case by case basis. So as long as he's comfortable with that, that's my personal, I kind of like that idea. So hold on the way here. Right, so I guess my point is, we don't want to get working on number 4 right now. That's going to take a lot of time if we even want to go down that road. And I think if the board is saying they want us to look at it, my opinion would be for number 4, we want to talk about that amongst ourselves and see if we want to do that, what kind of impact are we looking for? I think that's going to be a little back and forth with the board. That's a major change for our township. If we're going to increase density, I mean, that's a big step. But the other ones, I think we've talked about, everybody's comfortable with those, that yes, we should work on, for sure, 1, 2, and 3. And we've got to do a little research on 5 and 6, or at least I do, to better understand what's going on there.
In what, number 5?
Yeah, 5 and 6, I think they go together, that,
I'm not so sure they do, but
maybe I got my,
5 and 6 do go together.
they do.
That's the RH zoned properties and then the ordinance 82, because ordinance 82 was created with the intention of referencing those RH zone properties.
Right.
So if you wanted to look at not adding those, or I don't know how you guys would say this, adding them, keeping them in there, then you would have to rescind ordinance 82. So they do kind of go hand in hand there.
and then, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, but 5 and 6 are kind of what we were calling those legacy properties.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. As opposed to number 7, which is where we're talking, I believe, the areas outside of the subdivisions that we found.
The blue areas
The
that are
blue areas, right.
currently on our map. So that's the map that. Where is she? The purple is the RH, so we gave you that one just so you can see all the properties affected by that RH zoning.
Right.
But the one, this one that you guys work off currently, all of these blue areas are what is referenced in, what number was that?
7.
7.
And it looks like 7 was decided, right? The last sentence says these properties will then be treated as exclusive ag zoning instead of rural development. So 7 is one of those that we've already decided.
No,
Uh,
no.
I would say no,
So that's up for future discussion.
yes.
So 1, 2, 3, and 8. I'll volunteer with the clerk's office to ask Brian Standing to start drafting
Maybe
language
draft.
consistent with what we've already decided.
Mhm.
And I'm hesitant to say, let's come back next month and be ready to discuss 4, 6, and 7. And we still have some time when we can talk about it tonight, but I don't know that anybody's organized their thoughts to engage in that discussion. David, you thought you needed to re-educate yourself or bring yourself up to date on policy 1F and ordinance number 8.
Right, somewhere, you look up this the legacy policies, right? For the legacy, you said you looked up.
These. Gary. Eat this map.
Right.
Yeah, I know the other map.
This one.
I've got 29 people on here. And that, them areas in purple add up to about 250 acres. Out of 20 acres, 8 acres, 9 acres. I don't know if we gonna, if you were thinking of 1 per 2 acres or 1 lot, or how you're gonna ever do that, I don't know. To build on, you know. But here's all the, but here's all the landowners
Okay.
that are on here too. I've got all their names and their acreages. So it's something that we gotta decide too.
Okay, well, I'd be curious if I'm coming, I think we've had some number of people come look at some parcels and ask quite, pick on the Schillingstead parcel that attracted a lot of attention. Let's just say, one of those people come in and they look at these lots. In our ordinance, if we're going to be granting these legacy lots, legitimate, or give them the right to develop or subdivide. Our ordinance says 2 acres. So if somebody's got a 20, you said the acreage is up to 20 acres?
Well, yeah, some of these people that are in this got 20 acres, like Tim's got 19, Sterling's beside him got 20. There's quite a few 11s and 12s, 15s.
And if they were dividing it, don't we also have a limited number before it becomes a subdivision?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, so we
But how
have,
many lots in a subdivision?
Well, I think if you go more than, what is it, 3 lots or something, it has to be a subdivision.
okay, and if it's a subdivision,
And I'm not
what's-
sure of the number, maybe it isn't 3, but
that just means they have to build a road? Or they have to have,
well, we got an ordinance against subdivisions too.
okay, so,
So we don't allow subdivisions at this point. We're talking about conservation subdivision
mhm,
to be the only thing that we would allow
okay, so that,
at the way the land use plan, unless we change it.
Yeah.
The
Right?
land
Yeah,
use
so I
plan
guess-
doesn't allow for conservation subdivision
No,
on these 20-acre parcels.
no, but if we do allow it, then that's the way it would have to go, because we can't, and let, they could develop up to what, a certain number of lots. And then after that, it would become a subdivision, and then they'd have to, it would be considered a subdivision, and we don't allow subdivision. We don't have any provisions to allow subdivision.
I guess that's something, I'd like to ask Brian Standing that to see if that.
Well, I'm thinking back on what's the one across the road from Raven Oaks. Remember way back when they came in and they did a preliminary plan and they got their subdivision in? But that was the last subdivision we got. And the only reason they got it in is because they had a plan. They left a plan with us. And they said that they had already started the process before land use plan came into effect.
But wasn't that because the county was not allowing subdivisions that were unsewered? They had to have
We
municipal
have no
sewer.
provisions for subdivisions in our plan right now.
Is it-
Is there, there's no provisions for
You know, I-
subdivisions, is there?
I think there is.
I don't think so.
Do we have an
Well,
ordinance?
that's something, let's get that clarified with
Well-
Brian.
If you just read the land, like the land use map that we're looking at right now, that blue area is considered rural development traditional subdivision. So, and some of these legacy properties are in the traditional subdivisions, but also if we just if we're not talking about legacy and we're only talking about those blue areas, I would take that to mean that if somebody has 20 acres in the blue areas, they could currently build a subdivision.
I don't
Unless
think we
unless
ever-
in your
I don't
plan,
know how that ever got on that map, to be honest with you.
unless in your plan, it says that that's your opposed.
So now if I remember our Brian Duffin talking about 5 and 6, to kind of clear that up, I think he was going down the road of identifying these areas and giving them a new designation in our plan.
Yes.
So that way we didn't take away anything and we could control's a bad word, but recognize these areas. And then
think
that
you're
was
right.
potential growth if we want growth in the
Mhm.
township. So I guess, maybe if you could just email Brian, hopefully, he can be here next month, but maybe between now and then, he could just send an email to the plan commission group to kind of refresh our memory on 5 and 6 and if that's really what he was talking about doing.
If, I think you're completely correct, but what Brian Standing also said is the purple, the legacy properties and the blue, if you made them a different color and then you created the density as 2,
Right.
you know what I mean, 1 every
Yep.
2 acres, which is what it already is for those blue properties right now. Right now, somebody could do 1 point per 2 on any of those blue properties. The purple ones are controversial because of something that may have been taken out by accident, and that's neither here nor there. But what Brian Standing and Brian Duffin were kind of saying is you make them all whatever our new rural development or what it would be called. And you identify those properties plus some minus whatever you guys decide, and then make them what density you decide, which would most likely be 2 to 1, or 2 acres, 1 lot.
That's what I'm saying.
If you would like to move forward with it, we can have him draft, and he already has drafted a map similar to that. I just don't think that all of the purple lots were identified or put on there because that wasn't a direction that you guys told him to go yet. That he could put all of those on there so you guys could look at the impact that would be if they were all pink or neon yellow. I don't really care what color, but we could do that for next time too.
So these aren't all that there are?
No, that is all that they are, but we're kind of talking about them like they're separate, and they're not all separate. If you can see, some of the legacy properties are already in the blue. So the impact is actually much less than you even think that it is, because some of those properties can currently divide at 1 home per 2 acres. The ones that are in the purple that are not already in the blue are the kind of an additional, but I'm gonna use that for lack of a better term, because it was something that may have been in there and yet taken away.
What are we gonna do about the neighbors of these people that are in the
Got it.
purple? Got one right here. Okay, John Malarkey's got 4.5 and Russ Jones got 7 point, and Cox is right beside them both without any.
They don't get it.
They don't get it.
Right?
What
It's a-
the neighbors
You
are
have
gonna
to draw a
say. I
line
mean, what-
somewhere, though. I mean, we drew these lines to begin with. Why? Lines, they go somewhere.
That's why I guess I'm saying 5 and 6 need a little more discussion. They're not just cut and dried like we've kind of hashed through some of the other
Yeah.
ones. So in the interest of moving forward with our comp plan, that's why I was saying 1, 2, and 3. I think we could have Brian Standing kind of get some stuff up. Let us review it so we can change it. Because he's not getting the final say without obviously us looking at stuff. But
Just their
let him
drafts.
get that set up so we're a little farther ahead. That's why I say 5 and 6, I think we need a little more discussion on.
But once we do have discussion on it, I think it'd be great to have an outline, say, make
Make it happen.
make an effort, do a draft that can be brought back to us.
Mhm.
And we can, say, that isn't what I said, or that isn't what I meant, that is what I meant, whatever we have. But I think that let's put them to work and get this thing moving, and we may have a draft that we find acceptable. Like this one right now, just with our move the property line, that's gonna be in that housing module, or what the new housing module is going to be. Most likely, so. So are you making a motion as to which ones we sort of move forward with? As they are?
Well, all I'm
And-
saying
and
is
directing
that-
Brian Standing to,
I don't know, do we need a motion for Stephanie to tell Brian kind of what the,
Yes, you should make action on
so if we're
moving
saying
forward.
we want him to definitely get some finalized looking drafts on points 1, 2, 3, and 8. So that's the PDR, our chapter 75 driveway easement, the Lyman Anderson rule, and the commercial zoning that we kind of did case by case. Let him get heads down, kind of get towards a final wording of that stuff. I'm all for that.
okay,
And then I think you should work on that before, I guess, 5 and 6. I guess, who do you think we should all have included on a discussion with that to come up with how we're gonna solve these 2 bullets?
we're the discussers. We're it. And then if you want to have it to public hearing, some of these things, some of us we're gonna be having this to public hearing. And I just gonna have something that's as solid as we can to go to public hearing. And if there's something that we're very unsure of, I don't know, there were suggestions of doing a survey, sending out another survey. Public hearing as to some kind of discussion, but I think we're the discussing points. We're the discussing party. Let's come up with something that we can present to the public.
So Stephanie, before you said Brian had maps regarding like 5 and 6 that might be beneficial.
Well, the maps that he had presented 2 times ago, and I can pull them up. They had those blue lots because it's our new kind of a proposed new map.
Yeah.
They had some of them on there already as, you guys would just have to decide what type of density it would be. I forgot I cannot minimize the screen, which really makes me mad because I'm trying to get to the desktop. Sorry. Because that's where I have all of your stuff here. So let's go back and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about when I say.
I guess my point is 5 and 6, if we are gonna eliminate policy 1F and rescind ordinance 82, there's a little bit of legal work that's gotta be done there as far as.
Absolutely.
Right, so that's just not
So
an
you can
overnight.
preliminarily look
deal.
at it, but
So that's why I'm kind of hesitant to include those with work that Brian's doing now, because if we just want to get at least heads down on 1, 2, 3, and 8, let Brian work on that. Whether it's us figuring out what we got to do for 5 and 6, maybe we do need just to discuss that at our next meeting.
Okay, if we do that, it may be something we can be, are we the only ones that are struggling with that, or does Brian have some, Brian Standing have some language that may already address that,
That I do not know.
Well, I don't know that either, but we could be asking him.
okay, I could, so this is what I was talking about. How he put the areas that are in that peach, which is rural mixed use conservation conservation subdivision.
Uh-huh.
What he's saying is you guys decide, and as you can see, a lot of those areas are kind of what we're discussing right now. The blue areas, the purple areas, those peach areas are covering some of those areas. As well as the yellow areas are covering the traditional subdivisions. So what he's kind of proposing is if you wanted to keep RH and you wanted to keep the blue or not, nobody loses anything. We just color it a different color and you guys decide what density.
That's half of it. The other half is legally getting rid of
Yep.
1F and 82.
Yep.
Right.
That's, and,
Or modify it.
or modify, yep.
Yeah.
And identifying, that's the big thing that he's been saying is identifying these properties, because we would have to go through and say, oh, if our intention is to bring back all the purple, then you tell him every single purple lot on there that's circled in purple, we want in each, and he'll do that. If it's not already done. Now, that's a lot of tedious work, so just that you can tell them that. Every single blue lot, we want to keep as peach, make sure none of them are missed. And then if you wanted to add additional spaces, which at this time, up to you guys, then you would tell them where to add it. He's already kind of done a little bit of that right here.
Concerned that we're gonna be here next month and we're gonna be right where we are now on the same place. How about this for a off the wall suggestion? I request a volunteer or two to focus on number 5 and give us a presentation that we can all understand next time on number 5. Doesn't have to be a recommendation, might be a recommendation. Somebody else would talk to us about number 6. 6 is how 6 can be accomplished, what needs to be done. But I'm trying to find a way to focus on these and come to a resolution, right or wrong, to move the process forward. For example, once upon a time, I volunteered to learn everything there was to learn about solar farms. So I did that, and I think I was able to answer most people's questions when that subject came up. I would like to hear from somebody who's really focused on these points and use that as a basis for our discussion. Because I don't fully understand this right now myself.
Yeah, I would recommend doing whomever does it does 5 and 6 together. So a couple of people do 5 and 6 together because they are basically intended to mimic each other. And then maybe having a different group or said people do the 4. Right? Is that the differences we have? Yeah, 4. So RH and RH and ordinance 82 are referencing the same thing. And then 4 is kind of saying, wait, is this the one where it says the mapping error? Yeah.
No, that's
7.
Oh, that's 7.
Yeah,
Okay.
4 is kind of a high.
4, we're not worried.
philosophical
We're not
question. We don't
gonna,
wanna-
yes, so number 7, having somebody else work on that.
How many people, considering that this is a 7-person board, Commission, how many people can work together without violating the open meetings law?
2, yeah,
All right, so we don't want to have more than 2 people
right.
working on each one of these.
Mhm.
Not that I'm against the open meetings law, I just want to simplify things and streamline them.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Dave, you were.
Is that true for,
You have
No, it
invested,
might be
that's,
4.
I don't, is that true for plan commission?
Might be
Because you're
4.
not elected officials.
That's right.
I don't know if there is a rule.
elected or appointed, it pretty much the same in open meetings law.
Because we have,
It's a public, yes.
It is a public.
Public.
You're making a recommendation for us to make the decision.
I mean, they do make decisions as well, just not necessarily on this topic.
Well, anyway, if 5 is a quorum, 4 is a quorum.
4 is a quorum.
So 3 would be a majority. A walking majority.
Yeah. I think it's 3.
Anyway, I don't think it'd be, just getting people together. I don't think it'd be a bad thing to have 2 people. Dave, you're.
I think they're cooking up a good plan.
Okay.
Dave and Sharon, did I hear you volunteer for something?
No,
No,
Dave
you
says
didn't.
that 5 and 6 are important enough that I think the whole plan commission should talk about that because it's been a hot topic.
Yeah.
I don't think 2 people should be responsible nor given a burden of figuring that out. So I guess I would say maybe next meeting, our priority is to talk about 5 and 6. If you can talk to Brian Standing, explain to him that, yeah, we're kind of on the idea of maybe a new color. And if, you know, he's got something that would help us talk about that.
Why was this map ever made with the purple on it? And it must have been before 2012. See, this one, 6/19 and 12. I mean, what was the
The purple,
purpose
That's
of
the-
that?
that's the overlay of the RH zoned properties. So this was
Yeah, but-
made to identify what the RH zoned properties were.
Oh, back in, okay.
So that way you guys could
These were
see
zoned back
the
there.
impact.
Was
Yes.
that that was the ordinance 82,
That's what
wasn't it?
Brian Standing is
I
called.
think
Yes.
it was in 12 that it was presented, the one that was tabled, that was the ordinance 82. So this was
Well, the
presented in
RH
12.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay,
that's concentrate on, that's a good thing to concentrate on.
we'll have that on a specific agenda item, discussion of 4 and 6 at the next
5 and 6.
5 and
Yeah.
6, 5 and 6.
I would still put that on, that each one of us better do our homework and study this and have ideas as to what would work.
Did I misspeak?
Okay, and then someone, the clerk's office or I, if they request me, will communicate with Brian Standing and say, please proceed with 1, 3, and 8.
1, 2, 3. and
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, and
1, 2,
8 I
3.
have as moving forward, as you guys kind of have laid it out for him already. And then 5 and 6 will make a different agenda item for next meeting. My question would be is the 1, 2, 3, and 8. Would you like, obviously you want to see the actual verbiage in the plan. Would you like Brian to present that verbiage, or are you guys just wanting to look it over and making sure that it's ready for the next meeting and you guys can read through it?
I don't think we need to, if he writes it out for us ahead of time, I don't think I need to hear him say it also.
Okay,
I
that's what I'm
agree.
thinking.
I agree. I need to read it.
Yep, and then you'll move on to, because you can read through it and you could even don't have to do much on that at that meeting. And then you can move on to those 2 bullet point, where you can really get into heavy discussion about them.
I do think
What was that?
I want Brian back here, so if we have some edits, even on 1, 2, 3, and 8, we can discuss.
And he's suggesting that if Brian's here and we have some changes that we agree to, the 1, 2, 3, and 8, we can make the changes right then and there.
That's what Dave just said.
Is that what you were saying?
It was the almost exact verbiage.
Is it hard to get him to come to meetings or has he been pretty agreeable?
No, he's been fine. It's just whether you want that presentation going through what he put on there, that's completely up to you. And I think that's a valid point. And he can scratch it and say, this is how we intend it.
I would just like to read his stuff well ahead of time of him showing up somewhere.
Okay,
So I can strike and veto or in my own notes,
let's try and make that happen.
right,
then,
instead of
too.
doing it all the same night. That's the
Good
problem.
point,
Yeah.
really
Point.
good
I
point.
think we're all in
Yeah.
agreement on that. Yeah. Okay, can you just convey that to him, Steph?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on that? Am I allowed to or no?
Well, it's up to Tim. He's
The chair recognizes you.
Thank you. So my question is because our lot is technically zoned incorrectly. My understanding with you guys redoing that map is you could potentially change our lot to be zoned correctly as part of the adoption of this new map. Is that possible or am I misunderstanding this?
When you get to your new CSM, it'll be zoned right. Because they're gonna be changing lot lines, so they'll rezone you right then.
Okay,
Yeah,
You
sure.
could do a rezone at the same time. is
Yep,
what-
yep.
yeah.
okay.
We part of the approval through here in the board.
Good call on it. That's right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Any further discussion on that, on the review and possible action on the town land use plan?
Page 7 of your agenda. There's some proposed input session timeline.
We go back to August of 1921.
And we have our first public hearing in January of 22. But we need to be looking forward to when we do have the public hearings. And when we do have the public hearings, I'm hoping that we have something. This is mind numbing to somebody who's not familiar with it. It's mind numbing to us who are familiar with it. If we have something up that says this changes, something that's clear graphic, that this changes, that changes, this has an impact on you in the simplest of terms, that we can be ready for a good, productive public hearing. So that it's not a big fuzzball. Which we can, I'm sure we can make this a big fuzzball that nobody understands.
We don't want to be
ourselves.
flexible. None of us want to.
No, I don't think we want that. So it's how we can have something that's clear so that people outside and inside the township know what to expect.
Weren't we hoping to simplify that big book? So
I'm
it-
hoping that Brian was indicating that there was ways that he
To
was
do
looking
that.
at simplifying that.
Yes.
Yes. That's a good start right there.
well, I would like to see that simplification before too long.
Correct.
I
So
mean,
let's push, if we can push him forward on that, that would be, I
because,
think that's our goal right now, push him forward on that.
right. And we have to have something much simpler than this book for people to look at that public hearing.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
I mean, I don't suspect that other municipalities have a comprehensive book this thick.
I don't know. Maybe it's
I don't know.
worse. But we can be the trendsetters and do it right and get it nice and simple so that even I can understand it.
Simple is always better.
Okay.
If we have the, question, do you think we can be finishing this off this year, this summer? This year?
This year, I think we can do it this year.
I don't see why we can't do it this year.
I would like to see that.
Then let's target, let's do it.
I think we've drug it out long enough. We need to start finalizing. I think we're good. We've got a good start with what we did tonight.
Okay, if that's your feeling, maybe we should have a work session to sit down and barnstorm on items 5 and 6. So at next month's meeting, we know what we're all thinking about. I mean, we could, if we really put our minds to it, if we got together for an hour or an hour and a half max and discuss just those 2 paragraphs.
Okay, are we heading into summer? How available is everybody?
Well, I was told that Brian Duffin gave us fair warning last month. He said, this time of year, farmers get busy and he might not be here in May. And it proved to be true. Do things slow down for our farm neighbors later in the summer, or do they only get more intense?
Well, he'll probably get more intense because he goes to be on hay afterwards.
Yeah,
And I'm
but-
good, but
Well, we're going to be, we may be, have the June meeting is.
This is final meeting.
Is the, I don't know if that's his final meeting or that's when potentially members are replaced or added to the
That's his final
commission.
meeting.
Or what's the official term of the plan commission members, Stephanie?
June 21st is his final meeting.
June 21st?
Mhm.
Is that the term?
Yeah, because all the applications have to be to us by June 1st in order to decide who would replace said people, and then they would start in July. So
we got some that come in.
we have one application so far, but we do have other people who have come in and gotten applications
Good.
and expressed interest
Good.
that are aware of the deadline, so.
So we may, so July is the official time for the new board members to come on board,
July would be 19th, yeah.
but possibly June.
Mhm. If Brian may not be here in June either, like he had already expressed.
Do I understand what we're talking about here? We're talking about having Brian do the verbiage for everything except 5 and 6
And 4.
4 and 7.
and
4, 5.
and 4.
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't aware of 4.
For we're not
Okay,
talking about it
okay.
all. Yeah.
With the exception of 4, 5, and 6
And 7,
and 7.
and 7.
Okay, and then when we come back at our next meeting, whether it's a work session or not, we're gonna discuss 5 and 6. So we're making, that will be progress, I think. I think that'll be a big step. If we can decide what we want to do, especially with 5 and 6.
And with 5 and 6, if we do our homework, we ourselves study and come with
Yeah,
what
and if
we
you can
want to
get,
see.
and if you can get the language to us early so we can review it.
Yeah.
When we come here, we don't have to talk, we know exactly what we want to do with it.
Yep, I will email him tomorrow and tell him that we'd rather not see it on the Tuesday that we meet with him.
Okay, so we're gonna go 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Eventually, the 5 and 6 is our first.
Yeah. but
And then we go to
We
the other
want
two.
everything else finalized in what he thinks might be our final form, except those 4 items. That's the way I understand it.
Mhm.
I think that's a good plan.
Mr. Chair, is that the way you understand it?
It's like Captain Kirk says, let it be done.
Let-
Make it so.
Make it so.
Make it so.
So our next time is June,
21st, I think it said.
we're the 21st.
June 21st is the third Tuesday.
Everybody in town?
I'll be here.
I think so.
There's a good chance I won't be, but we'll still have a quorum without me.
June 21st, huh?
Maybe we should have a work session then, so everybody can get together, so.
In my work session. This ship that I learned from the room is basically a work session anyway. Everybody gets to talk.
That's good.
What do you,
What would you have in mind for a work session, Alan?
The next week or week after, 24th or the 31st. Something before the
I could make either one.
of May?
May, yeah.
The 31st is.
Tuesday.
supposedly.
Which one works for you guys?
So you're talking possibly next Tuesday?
24, yeah, next Tuesday. or
I got
Tuesday after.
something going on during the day. Hopefully I'll be free at 6:30.
Well, if we do it on the 21st, I mean, the 24th, like you were talking, that would give Brian time to take our recommendations, put it into some language.
That wouldn't happen.
That's only a week.
That wouldn't happen in a week, but if you're just discussing amongst you guys that 5 and 6, that.
We don't need this.
No.
Right.
Oh, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
Oh,
Just the items 5 and 6, if we tell him what we really want done, then he can include that in the language when he's doing the rest of it.
yeah, that would get, okay,
That-
yes,
that's what
you're
I'm
right.
thinking. So when we meet on the.
Give
on
him
the
a few weeks to do
21st or
that.
Whatever it is, we'll have everything in front of us and we can start moving forward.
Should, yeah.
I think that's, I think the sooner we have the meeting, probably the better. What do you guys think? To give Brian time to
Okay,
put it all together.
you're pointing to May 24th, a week from today.
Week from today.
Sharon, how you doing? That's okay. Okay with that.
Thanks, I got something during the day. I should be back in time at 6:30 for a work session.
Will you be sober?
Yes.
If not, get off my back.
If not, we may get a lot, you may get a lot of input from you. Arlen, that works for you?
Yeah, so I say no right now.
Okay, all right.
Things could change.
Can you take care of that stuff?
Yep, we can make it
Okay,
happen.
work session 24th.
All right. Thank you, everybody, that's progress. Communications, item number 7 on the agenda.
Communicate, you were all there at the joint meeting, which gave us the direction. So I think
That's our communication, okay. And then, number 8, town board items, Arlen Kai is our representative from the town board.
I guess I jumped ahead. We jumped.
Nothing to add?
I think we're following the direction from the board. Get moving.
Look at the things.
Let's go.
Any other business to come forward board before I request a motion for adjournment? Sharon?
I have a question, because I don't always understand. When I look at this map, the big map we have on our table in front of us with the little purple squares. Why are some of these subdivisions in purple? A subdivision, they are platted to platted subdivision.
Where are they outlined in purple?
Yes, so why
It
are
was
they?
the
in-
overlay.
Yes, I know, but why are they? Not all subdivisions are in that purple, so why are just some of these?
Well, the purple is RH zoning. That's the legacy lots. That came before the blue came. And so this was just to show you that where all of those legacy lots were before.
So we're saying that a legacy lot can be part of a platted subdivision?
It already is.
How
Those ones
can
are
it be?
already in there.
Well, there's some of the blue is also CSMs.
Yeah, they're different maps. One, I mean.
Yes, but in particular, this one, I believe, is it's on Glenway.
Okay.
This is a platted.
Sharon, I
subdivision.
think I can answer some of that. Some of these, like I'm looking at these lots, like right here in Windridge. And it's blue and then it has purple on
Yep.
top of it. That particular lot shouldn't be blue because that is really not part of the subdivision. It looks like it is on this map, but I know for a fact it isn't. And I'm talking about this particular one right here.
Double
And these-
farmhouse.
Yeah, and these over here are the same situation. And I don't know about the two here, but these 4 over to the right and the one to the left, if you fold it like this. Those are really not part of the subdivision. So they're, in fact, the first one here onto the left, they split that a couple of years ago. And it was certified surveys and they were gonna build and they never built. But I know for a fact that wasn't part of the subdivision.
They just made them a subdivision afterwards, the way it looks to me, because them houses were all built individual on Denton's there. them were all individual houses, and now they've just put them into blue all as one subdivision. Donnie Brown's house and them 4 in a row.
Yeah, but in
Them weren't in a
Denton,
subdivision.
aren't those, was that a subdivision to begin with?
Nope.
I don't think so either.
He had 4 lots, one for each one of the kids, that, or Louis Brown did.
Now they're showing a whole bunch of them, right?
Now he shows it all as a subdivision.
Yeah, that's really not, I agree with you. It's really not a subdivision.
But it's a dense,
But this is
Well, they
a,
just have, they have 4 certified surveys.
These purple are the RH zone, what were RH zoned properties.
Okay,
yeah,
the
but how
purple
would they be
overlays.
RH and be a part of a subdivision? Aren't all subdivisions R1?
Like on Uncle Wes's farm there. The house and the
Yes.
barn
Yep,
wasn't part of the subdivision.
correct.
It was, and that's in, so that was still all right.
That I understand.
And Louis Brown's down the road, the 4 lots there,
Yeah.
same thing. They put it into the blue afterwards.
What, 2
But look
houses
over
there,
on Glenway,
and they're certified surveys.
oh,
This map is yours.
past Denton's, you come up the road
Questionable.
from Denton's and there's that subdivision. Glenview Ridge, I think it's called.
you get your own.
Yeah, that's Denton. Oh, yeah. Denton's right.
Where Ken Crawley lives.
Right.
That's,
That was all put in there and then they made it a subdivision afterwards. It wasn't, I bet you that was never put in there as a subdivision. It was sold off lot by lot with from, what was her name that sold them?
I don't remember now.
I don't either.
Were you
I don't-
talking, Arlen?
Glenway up across from
Glenway Circle.
Beth Cox, yeah.
So that's not a traditional subdivision.
I don't think it was.
I don't think it is
Before my
either.
time.
No, I don't think so. I think they're.
But if you looked on the assessment roll, they're just certified surveys.
So then at some point in time, somebody made it a subdivision or mapped it as a subdivision.
Sure.
I don't know, that's why I'm asking the questions, because
The
I.
county come in there and made it all blue afterwards.
But I think there was a number of places where it was made all blue. Part of it was, I don't think it was just the county, I think it was MSA. That we have information from them that said, this is what it was, and this is what was approved by the town board at the time.
Okay,
And as a concept that if you have, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it looks like it's colored subdivision.
so we can't consider it a subdivision.
Which means what?
Well, I bet you anything, those 2 lots that are up there are certified surveys. They're not platted lots. I'm not sure of that, but I'd be willing to bet money on it.
One's off of the Glenwood Circle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Go
Right, I think you're
to
right.
access Bain and bring up an address for me.
An address or parcel? Address?
Yeah.
Okay.
953 Johnson Avenue.
I don't know what, you know.
So this is in the old Oregon Territory
Territory.
subdivision north of
Mhm.
Fahey Heights.
Mhm.
So does that have a lot description?
Sure, lot 16, Oregon Territory.
Right, okay. So that's still considered a subdivision,
I would assume so.
right? So in what we're talking about here, just north or south of Denton's in there, I'm curious what it says on access Bain for one of these lots that we're talking about in this square. Do you know anybody for no valid address in there?
I don't off the top.
Is it the
Well, you
blue
got-
and purple one or just?
You
the
can go to
purple
the
one?
Cox's property and.
You can
they
go in.
go-
Or can you just pan that,
Can you
Stephanie, and get
pull up-
over to there and?
Can you pull up anybody on Glenway
Scott's.
Circle?
Scott's address is that.
Is what?
Scott's address is on the before.
Or just go to Mike and Beth
Foresters used
Cox.
to live out
Right.
there. I know.
You can look at those.
No, I know they are. You want-
Backpacks or shed packs, which one?
Chad Cox is not the right one.
Beth?
Mike and Beth.
Mike, God.
Oh, we know they're not a part of a subdivision.
Yeah, it's right across the road, though.
Yeah, it'll get us close.
It's done.
That'll get us close. Oh, no, that's not it. Might be
Bunker
under-
Hill. Type in John Malarkey, that'll get you close. We can just go up the road.
I can definitely do John Malarkey, maybe. MAL.
MUL.
MUL. Come on. Some of this might be under trust, so I can't look it up by name.
I got 5424 Glenley Circle.
Thank you. Okay. How far in or out do you want me to go?
That's lot 3
Lot
in
three.
Fenway Ridge.
So it says lot 3. So
Should we zoom out a little bit?
Okay. Does it have a CSM though?
Flat.
Lot 3, if it, but
Plat, CSM.
show restrictions on plats CSM quarter.
So because it says lot 3, my assumption is that that's always been a subdivision. Because you wouldn't zone some and then make it lot 3.
It would be, it could be lot 3 CSM number such and such,
Yes.
but this clearly
Yeah.
says to me, it's part of a subdivision.
Isn't that Chuck Forster's property? You know, you, where he used to live?
It's about where he used to live.
The lot one lot, when it came before you, when Dale Secker and I came here and we were trading land,
Well, if you look that up on the, I'm sorry.
I'm lot one, he's lot two. So
Yes, but you're not in a
Subdivision.
a
we're not in
subdivision.
a subdivision,
No.
we're lot one, lot two, and there's CSMs. So you
Right.
can have lot one and lot two. in
Yes, but it would,
CSMs.
your description would indicate CSM number 1540 or whatever.
Mhm.
Good way to check that is just look on the assessment roll, because that'll be described that way. That property.
So then my question is, this purple, we're calling them RH zone properties prior to 1215 and 94. So we're looking at one of these lots right now. So the whole thing with these legacy lots is that supposedly they had splits they weren't aware of, right? That's why we're talking about this.
That's what I understand.
Right, so could this lot, how big is it?
It is 2.53, so.
So that could not be split any farther based on our current rules, correct?
Right.
Because you're not getting to 3/4 of an acre or 2.
Mhm.
Is that how I understand that?
Well, yeah, it has to be, and that's what you guys would put on there. It would be over 2 acres, which you already have, so it has to be 1 per 2,
So why is it purple?
because that's what it was zoned at that time. So it can't, you can't, it's what it's zoned. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's applicable. It doesn't mean that they can actually do it. It means that if you meet all of the criteria, it's a potential, but it's not for them because they don't meet the criteria. Most of them don't. That's what it says right here. Out of 126 total, only a very few can actually meet the criteria. And some of them can't even meet it because of driveway placement or not enough space for the septic areas in the landscape.
So to me, we're spending an awful lot of time on these properties that we can't do anything about and they can't do anything about. Am I not correct?
I think Brian has already described that. There's quite a few, most of them are already too small to be further divided.
29 of them are big enough to be divided.
Right, there's 50 some and then, but 29 are big enough, to do something of the 53 identified.
And then I still don't understand, would you give, say Bill Maher, he's got 31 acres here. He's in there.
Yeah.
How many lots can he put in there?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
15.
That's what I'm saying. Can he put in 15 lots in there?
I guess let's find out what.
And he's already used up his splits.
Or use up the splits.
He's got 3 houses for his kids. He's used up his splits and according to this, he can use 16 more houses in there.
See, that's where I'm confused.
Yeah, or me too. Yeah.
When was Glenridge Circle built?
I don't remember at all.
Well, when was this one built?
I guess.
Doesn't it
that-
say on there?
I guess, well, I have to log in and it was.
Oh, I thought it said on there what year it was.
It's before 96. I know that.
Yeah, I'm sure it was too.
'Cause there were lots for sale in 96. I remember that when we were looking for a place.
Thank you.
If Windridge, if their testimony is right, 92 is where that easement was, so Windridge is pre-92, 92 or before.
I've got information that the RH zone properties or legacy lots were capped at 4. So I'm guessing there was, and I don't have, I mean, I might actually have it, but there was a chart that said what each one of those parcels, how many acres, like if it was an 8-acre parcel, if it only had 2 instead of 4, or there, it was all like mapped out, that RH area.
That was the one, that's the policy 1F.
Yeah, and so I don't have it here, so I can't give you an example of, say, if I did, I could probably tell you how many specifically that question is.
Oh, that is before 94.
Oh, it was before 94. They got driving bus up there. They got driving bus up there. Before.
If it comes under 82, ordinance 82 or policy 1F, I would assume.
Stephanie, when you're sending questions to Brian Standing,
He created a couple.
what Andy brought up is an understanding,
Subdivided around.
can somebody come in and build a subdivision in town of Oregon, or have we outlawed it in some way?
Thank you, yeah, I can get
I
that.
think that is a good clarification.
Mhm. It
probably is if we can.
Find
figure
it
out.
for us.
Hunt for it. So come next week, everybody gets to read this all over again.
I apologize for asking the questions, but some of these things don't make sense to me.
Obviously, they don't make sense to a lot of us because we're struggling with it also.
Why don't you ask the questions? Don't just me.
So,
We're counting on all the wisdom that you bring from your questions.
My
Anybody
wisdom
have
is-
anything else before we adjourn?
Move with your.
I have a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have this. Thanks for everybody's attendance tonight.
We're doing this out here before 10.
You winding down for the season?
Yeah.
School only got what, 3 months?
Key that explained what ones and what per acre. Which when Arlen posed that question, it's a really good question.
Let's catch up.
There is a key that kind of goes through
Not much to talk about.
how many. Jennifer's the one who told me that it's capped at 4. So meaning you couldn't have 15, but I would want all of you guys to see what that meant. So-
They haven't turned the air conditioning on.
Positions.
95-degree weather, well, she lives there. And they can't build out one that's on last. Long story, but anyway, she